Cory. Great Scott! Using the flux capacitor for our time machine, we have to send you back to episode 1 to warn our past selves that when this series reaches 88 episodes, it will cause a rift in time.
Okay.
Going back to the future.
All right. I'm going to go save the future. Why do we call it Back to the Future when I'm going to the past? I don't know. We'll do it.
Let's go back to the past.
Okay. So, welcome to... Guys, listen. You have to listen to me. Art check. They're not listening to me. You have to stop. We can't do this. You have to stop doing this. They're not stopping. We can't do it. Art project. All right.
Great Scott, Cory. Oh, that was the most awesomely ridiculous thing I think we've done.
Okay. And like my wife did not get the reference. She's like why are you guys doing this for the 88th episode? And she said, what's so special about 88? And it's 88 miles an hour. You have to go 88 miles. She's like, what? I'm like, we have to watch these movies again. Because she was born in 85. Because I'm like 5 years older than she is. So she wasn't old enough to understand.
Oh, man.
And I set my lights up for the thing.
Yeah, so to let everybody in on the thing, if you're not familiar. So episode 88 miles an hour, Back to the Future reference. Little Back to the Future intro for you guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We've done 88 of these things. Can you believe it?
88. And I'm just going to randomly throughout this episode bring up this really cheesy graphic that we made.
It's pretty authentic, too. Oh, I love it.
All
right. So, should we get into the 48-hour art check?
Yes. I forgot to load up my graphics, so I'm going to do old school and just point my iPad at the camera. Yeah. So, I did load up yours, though. So why don't you jump in? What have you gotten done in the last 48 hours?
So I did rough pencils for the first 2 panels of this page of quarterly stories, which I will just throw out there has a bit about Back to the Future, because when I was a kid, I was obsessed with it. And so it kind of talks about that and like a game I played and this whole thing relating to Back to the Future. So this episode ties into my comic.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Great Scott!
Where did you get that shirt? What is that shirt?
Which one? This one?
Yeah, the white one. No, the white.
Oh, the white. Oh, this is actually a lab coat from like an old Halloween costume.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. It was funny because like when we were kind of plotting this on Monday, very spur of the moment, we're like, I wonder if we could throw together our logo like that. And you're like, we got to get a lab coat. And I'm like, I have a lab coat. And you're like, it'd be cool if we had a wig too. And I'm like, I have a white wig and a lab coat just for some reason.
just have these things.
Just happen to have those laying around. So, serendipity.
Yeah.
All right.
Works out well.
Yeah. What about you? What'd you get done?
Okay. So for me.
Oh, wait. Before we transition, can you hit that button again and make the 48 thing?
Yep.
I will call that something I accomplished.
Yeah. You did this.
Yes.
That happened. And then I made it spin and zoom.
Yeah, you did some awesome animations, so that ties in, that transitions well.
We were trying to go for the most 90s looking thing ever. Or 80s, I guess it would be. Okay, so for me, I don't even know if you guys can see this. But I got this, and it's not like animated, but I broke it down into pieces, and so I have all these different parts of this that are going to kind of animate.
The stages.
Yeah, and each one of these is a different layer, and so I'll be able to kind of work through each different thing.
Oh, that looks rad, man.
Yeah, so I think it'll... I mean, it looks too busy because it is, but you're not going to see all of that at the same time. But honestly, I didn't get a ton done. And then I also, my wife wanted me to draw something for a present that she's giving, and so that's kind of what I did last night. But I haven't done anything tonight because of what I'll talk about during challenges. But yeah.
Cool.
So I'm almost done with that animation, and I got some music back from the guy I'm working with to do the sound for the animation. And I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I'm kind of excited about it because he's pretty stoked. And he's like, knows all these genres of music I've never heard of. He's like, yeah, this is drum and bass, which is like an offshoot of this Technic something house rave. And I'm like, sounds like you know what you're talking about, which is awesome. So, he's
so basic, like boiled down, is it going to be like a mumble rap intro?
I basically I told him the first 5 seconds, which I can show you. So during this part, I want it to be like creepy, kind of like almost like toy piano circus music, and then there'll be the explosion, and then I want to go into like hyper fast like drum beat like and like guitars, and then like have it like fade out with like
nice.
Electronic sounds for the robot and stuff. So it'd be like, this is a terrible song, but I can't remember the name of the song, but anyway, it's a Megadeth song where it starts with this old country thing, and then there's a nuclear bomb that goes off, and then they just come in with the guitars, and they're just like, you know, so this will be something like that, and then we'll just do like vocoder weirdness where it's like hello talk, but it's all distorted and stuff. And
that's awesome.
So we'll see.
And it's looking so it's looking so good.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. There's one part about the way that the robot arm like moves weird that I'm gonna fix, but I'm pretty happy with what's going on right now.
Yeah, it's looking really smooth, and with that explosion, and yeah, it's rad. Cool.
Yeah. So challenges.
Challenges. Yeah. So challenges. As I'm getting closer and closer to vacation time, it's like getting hectic at my work, and this is like the downside of being an art director. It was like 4:00 today, an hour before I got off work. There was like a line outside of my tiny little office of people just waiting to hand me a new fire to deal with. So, so trying to kind of put those all out before I go on break is going to be a challenge. And then there's just some family stuff. Even more crazy stuff came up today that's not related, but strangely similar, just different side of the family. And so it's, you know, I don't know. It's hectic. So it is kind of hard to make the time, but I'm still trying to make the time because you got it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And it sounds like you're on an uphill pedal.
Yeah.
So I used to be, and I think I'm getting back into this. I used to be like, when things got really hard, I'd be like, oh, cool. Good stuff is on the horizon, you know, because like it does kind of like go back. Like it's never like always crappy all the time, you know, or always good all the time. So when things got hard, I was like, oh, cool, good stuff is, I don't know. But
well, another thing, I mean, and this is just ties into it, but it's like the problem with like conditional happiness
oh yeah
or conditional work is that like life gets really complicated and bad things are going to happen. Like every year you're going to have something terrible happen, and the older you get, the more that will continue. So it's like if that's what you're relying on for productivity, you'll end up with hair like this and nothing done.
Right.
So, you know, although, you know, I'm pretty proud of this hair that I've grown.
It's great. Yeah. And it's cool that it doesn't match your beard at all.
I thought that was pretty classic.
Yeah. So challenges for me, it's the end of the semester. It was graduation today. I'm moving offices, and so I had to pack up everything in my office and move it with this little cart dolly truck thing through the snow to the other building, and then a bunch of weird stuff. And then I didn't get home from work until like 9:45 p.m. because like you had to go to convocation and like get on my Harry Potter robes, and it's cool because like I get to like meet all my students' parents and like they're all excited, and you know, and I'm like, hey, your daughter's great, and she's like,
hide your drinks and snacks in your little pocket.
yes, yep.
Yes.
Yeah, pro tip, if you get a master's, then your Harry Potter robes have a little sleeve and you can put snacks in there. And I didn't do that today, and I fell asleep because I was so warm, because the thing is just an oven. It just and then I didn't have anything to do but sit there. So yeah, so I need to like, because like all my professor friends, they're like hard candies and M&Ms, and I had a plastic cup full of grapes one time, and I just, you know, and that. Yeah. So if you can like do that, it keeps you awake. But otherwise, it's just really long when you listen to hundreds of names being read.
It's this is the like one of those little behind the veil kind of secret type things, but it's like I always assumed when I was a student that it was like this really prestigious ceremony to the people conducting it, and that the students were the immature people. And then being on the other side of the aisle, when all of these like people who've gotten their MFAs and stuff, we're all wearing our like Harry Potter robes and funny hats, and we're like, what side does the thing go on again?
Yeah.
Like each of us is like, I don't know, ask him. Like, I don't know. What's this thing the students are doing?
Yeah.
The teachers are doing. And similarly, like when the students are kind of snoring during like long, drolling speeches, so are the teachers. Like,
yeah, it's just the teachers sit behind the students, so the students never know.
Exactly. So, but I always found that funny. Another thing I found weird, because when I graduated, I thought that, I don't know, I had this weird idea that when you got your MFA, they'd like give you the robes, and like hardly anyone I know actually bought the robes.
Oh, really?
So what ends up happening at most times I've taught is the school forks the cash to just rent your robe for the college you went to.
Oh, that's
and then
funny.
You just rent. I just get a rental, so I have a rental MFA robe. I guess if I ever got like 10-year track or something, I'd probably have to like fork out the cash and get a robe.
See, I bought mine because they were not terribly expensive. PhD robes are ridiculous. They're so expensive, but like I got mine, they weren't too bad because I have to wear it 3 times a year to these things. But a lot of my colleagues, they don't necessarily wear the right robes. They just like, somebody retires and they're like, well, I don't need to go to this thing anymore. You can have my robes. And so they just wear like whatever robes they've inherited. I've got a guy from a good buddy from England who's like, yeah, my robes don't even make sense over here, so I just wear these, you know, or whatever. And so it's all, but yeah.
Dude, we had a teacher from France, and the French art institutions have like the funniest hats I've ever seen. Very similar to like kind of like a Yale hat, you know. I think it's Yale that has like the big floppy hat.
Oh right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to that, but weirder.
My buddy, Steven, friend of the show, Steven. I've got to get a picture of his robes. They are baby blue, and he doesn't have a hood or anything because he went to the Columbia School of Journalism for his master's, and they are he looks like a choir boy. Like he literally looks like, I mean, every joke that you can imagine, we throw at him at the end of every semester. And our challenge is to try to come up with new jokes because everyone's dressed in black. The PhDs, they've got like red and blues and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then he walks in with like the most feminine pastel blue head to toe robe. And it's like, is the junior high having a graduation today as well? Like, is that what's going on? You know, I mean, you almost expect him to like, I don't know, to be at the altar helping the priest give mass or something. It's great. He's got some good robes.
He's got to wear that the next time he's on Star Trek.
Yeah.
So all right. So okay.
Way off topic. I do want to say that the speeches were really good today. It wasn't that they were boring. They were really fascinating. It was just I was really tired.
It's just a long process. It's a lot of preparation, a lot of meet and greets, and like it is really cool being on that side and seeing these people, like go off that you like kind of trained.
Well, and
That's pretty rad.
it's like right at the end of the day too. It is awesome. It's great, and I got to meet lots of parents, and it was fun. So how about plans? What are your plans?
Okay, so definitely getting out of this robe, like this robe.
Out of that robe and into a more comfortable robe.
I hope to do 2 more rough pencils, and then outside of that, just actually succeed in being able to leave on Friday. That's my biggest goal.
A worthy goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, most people will understand this, but like those that I teach with that have never worked in the industry, they don't get it. Like they're just like, oh, you just take off. I'm like, no, you can't just take off for vacation. Like you have to do all the work like in preparation for what may happen while you're gone. And then when you get back, you have to catch up. So it's like, it's a lot of work to go on vacation, like, because you have to get everything ready.
Back from vacation. Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh man. Okay. So, my plans are, I am going to put the explosion in, which I planned on doing tonight, but I forgot that I was going to get home at 10. So I'll do that after this, and then that's it. I think that's pretty much it, is get the explosion in, and then I will finish up the few things that I'm drawing for my wife for Christmas, and I got to do some Christmas shopping and some other things to make sure that I am ready for next week. And
I just got in the Christmas spirit.
You switch from Doc Brown to Santa. Yeah.
All right. So what do we want to do for the topic, do you think?
We're going to keep it to 10 minutes.
Yes.
Because this is our shorter episode.
Yes.
So we could do stuff, experience the world, and that'll make your art better. Effort removes excuses. Material value versus perceived value. Creativity with regularity and abandon. Competition.
You want to do effort removes excuses?
Yep, I do.
Cool.
Okay, let's do the podcast intro. Do we have anybody in the chat?
Mm-hmm. No, it's dead. We did a whole performance. There are a couple people lurking, so I would encourage them when this is done, watch our amazing intro. We had costumes, we had special title sequences,
special effects.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as special effect as you can get in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right.
Yes.
I'm so tired. Everything's way more funny than it should be.
Oh,
all right. What was I going to do? Oh, podcast intro. 48-hour art check. 88. Best of podcast. And we go live Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 p.m. California time. And we take the best conversations from that show and rip it and put it on this podcast. And today we're going to talk about the topic, effort removes excuses. And so what I meant by effort removes excuses is the potential of something is always going to be perfect because it's potential. It's not realized, right? And so people always say things like this, like, oh, this sounded so much better in my head, or the idea I had in my head was so much better than what I was actually able to do. That's because your brain is lying to you, right? There's also no risk. As long as you never start anything, you can never fail. You can never get hurt. You can never make huge, horrible mistakes. And so there's all of these excuses that you can have to not start. But as soon as you start something, the main excuse that it removes is that it exists now, right? And so you don't have an idea for a great story. You've written your book, and it's good or bad, right? You don't have an idea for a comic. You've drawn it, and it's good or bad. It exists. It comes into reality. And so I think what I wanted to talk about is kind of like because it sounds negative almost to say this, but like there's some huge benefits to that because everybody's always waiting for something. They're always waiting for their schedule to open up, or waiting for their job to calm down, or waiting for their life to settle, or waiting for money to be right, or whatever. And the fact of the matter is that there is never a good time to start a project. It's just there. It just isn't, right? Mm-hmm. And so, putting forth the effort and doing the work, it removes all of those excuses that you're using to not start because you've proven that you can bring something into reality. And then you have to deal with the fact of whether it's good or not. And I think that's a little scary. And so a lot of people are like, oh, I'll just stay in the theoretical realm, right? And people can talk theory and criticism all they want. I actually went off on Twitter the other day about this because I was just like, freaking... Now, there's two types of critics. I love the critics that add value and curate and are bringing an interesting discussion that really raises things up. I do not like the critics that never try to make anything and only tear stuff down. And it's like, you are a useless member of the art community and you shouldn't exist. It's like you are just a leech on the system that is just trying to inject a class system into something that doesn't need a class system. And they're not creating. And so they might have tons of excuses and they are putting out airs and pretending to be very knowledgeable about something. But until you do it, I don't think you can claim knowledge. I think you can claim a desire for knowledge. I think you can claim a lot of wanting, but you can't claim like experience. Like experience trumps talk every time.
Yeah. So a couple of things come to mind, like one on the waiting thing you were mentioning. Like my wife and I, before we had a kid, we just kind of kept like, like thinking, well, when we have enough money or when I get like the right career, because at the time I was still freelance, and when conditions are right, we were still in an apartment. So it was like, well, when we have a house, when we have like all these things, like that's when, we'll be ready and we'll have a kid. Right. And I remember a couple people just talking to us and giving us the cold truth that like most parents would give, which is like, you are literally never going to be in the position to have a kid until you have a kid.
Yeah. You're never going to be ready.
You can't be perfectly ready. You can't be financially ready. You just kind of can't be ready. It's one of those things, like if you want to do it, you just kind of commit to it, you do it, and then you make it work.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you should be foolish about it, but it's just one of those things of that reminds me of art in a lot of ways, because there's so many benefits from like being a parent. It's the same thing with art. It's like there are so many benefits to actually doing it. But if you're kind of living in this eternal preparation or criticism, you're going to be in this awkward place where it's just going to be very difficult to make that work and get anything done creatively. Another thing that comes to mind, it's just that old analogy of like it's pretty easy to be like an armchair expert or be like a person on the sidelines, like telling a superior athlete like how they should have done the play on the field. It's another thing to be on the field, see the conditions, have guys that are like gigantic running at you, like intending to hurt you,
right? And
then like have to score a play or whatever game that is. It's one thing to kind of criticize. It's another to get in it. So the reason I think experience does trump, sorry, what was the phrase? It's experience trumps
effort removes excuses and experience trumps talk, I think.
That's it. Yeah. Effort. So the reason I think effort outdoes excuses, or gets rid of excuses, is basically like this: when you're safe on the sidelines, it's easy to make every excuse in the world as to like why you haven't done it. Mm-hmm. But the second you do it, and especially when it's a personal project, it's like there's literally no one to blame but yourself, and you have to live with what you've created, and it's never going to live up to the kind of perfect standard that you yourself are going to have. But one thing it will do and this is something I've noticed with a lot of creators. When you meet people who are kind of like legends in the field, a lot of the time they're super humble and super hesitant to be super critical of other artists. And if they are, they always punch up. I
Right.
rarely see like a very successful artist punch down.
Right.
Um, and by that, I just mean like I think a good critic, if they are going to be super critical of something, would pick something that is like lauded
Yeah.
and like everyone loves, something that's got tons of money behind it, and so it's a big company, and they're big kids, so they can take it.
Right.
Whereas like I think petty critics tend to like kiss up to like the bigger stuff and just find the indies and like you know dissect them and attack them,
Yeah.
and it seems like the wrong direction to be pointing criticism. Adam in the chat said he missed the first few minutes. Go back after this and watch the first few minutes because there's time travel involved. And so you're then participating in our early time travel by traveling back in time and watching this
Yeah.
in the past, even though right now is the present for us.
So
Mind blown.
there you go. Yeah, and I also want to add that it seems bad, like you know, it's never going to live up to what you think. Like the way that I imagine something and then my ability to execute what's in my mind is never going to match up, right? And that seems like a bad thing, but I think it's actually an exceptionally good thing. And the reason is because everyone who has a brain and has eyeballs can imagine what something would look like. But only very few people who are willing to take the hours and hours and hours of sacrifice can realize and execute anything visual. And so there's like a level of above, as imperfect and whatever you know adjective you want to use to describe it, it may be. It exists in reality. It has been realized as a physical work, and that is, I think things that are executed are way more important and have way more impact than things that are never realized because they stay inside people's imagination. And so
Yeah.
I wouldn't look at the fact that your work is never going to match up to your hopes as a negative thing, because your hopes exist inside of your brain and no one else can see them. You know, no one else can see what you're imagining. And so your ability to create anything, I think, is super important. And then at that point in time, you stand by it, right? And you say, yeah, this is the best I can do right now. I will get better, and in a week and in a month and in a year, I'll be able to do it better and differently, and I'll have improved because I'm going to continue to work. But right now, this exists, and I made a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome, because there are very few people that are willing to do what it takes to execute and realize what they can imagine.
Yeah, I have one thing to tack on. I don't want to extend it too long. So, but I'll also say that by making like you're making an effort regardless, like making an excuse is a wasted effort.
Yeah,
Meaning like you're exerting energy and time and thought into excuses. And if you just flip that energy and that time and that passion, from like, let's say you're being a critic, you take that time being a critic where you're criticizing other work, and you put that thought and that effort and that passion, maybe that hatred or whatever, towards creating something,
yeah,
you're now actually going to end up with something. Whereas the other thing, all you're going to end up is taking something and deconstructing it and possibly ruining it. So like one has a negative impact because it literally just removes or takes things down a notch, whereas the other adds something new to the dialogue. And so I would say just making an effort in creation is the right way to kind of put your energy forward, as
yeah,
opposed to like putting all that energy into pretty much like excuses. Take all the excuses, all the time you think of the excuses, the reasons. Just spend that time drawing,
Yeah.
and you'll find that you end up with more work and more kind of pride. I think afterwards, like healthy pride.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and,
and, and
and
and along those same lines, take all the time that you use explaining your excuses to other people of why you're not doing stuff, and show them the work that you've created instead. You know, like
yeah,
replace the creation and the explanation of those excuses with creating art and showing it to people.
hmm and uh, I mean, I think this is just an old tale that's pretty common, especially in the LA area, where like everybody has this idea of like what the perfect movie is, and when they get in film they're going to make this perfect movie, and
Uh,
then they like work as like a PA or something on a film, and they see how almost impossible it is to even make a film, period,
right.
much less a film that's any good or makes any sense, where the like storylines even possible to follow,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many cogs that just like one little mistake can destroy the whole thing. It's a very fragile thing, and it's kind of an accident a lot of the time that anything comes out good in that scenario in the whole studio system.
Yeah.
So, like, once again, by dipping in, you get a better perspective on what it is that you're critiquing, and I think you'll find yourself to be a lot less critical too. So we're going way over,
Yeah.
but yeah, good topic, man. I
Yeah.
could go on that one for a long time.
Oh yeah. And along those lines, go see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse because it is the best comic book movie that's ever been made. I saw it last night. It's legit. It is like so good. Anyway, good story, good voice acting, good dialogue, and the most incredible visuals I think that have happened in years. As far as
I'm excited.
it looks like you're watching a comic book, but it's moving, but it's not like those cheesy like semi-moving comics that they tried to do like 5-10 years ago. It's just they have like offset printing dots that are kind of like throughout the thing. They have like thought bubbles that come up that don't feel awkward. They feel like they belong there. They're interacting with like thought bubbles and dialogue boxes, and then they're also like throughout the whole thing during like major action sequences, instead of seeing fluid movement, you're seeing flashes of comic book panels, and it feels like it belongs. It is a beautiful work of art. It is amazing.
Awesome.
And they did most of the movie in Photoshop. So they made a feature film with Photoshop. It blew my mind. It's incredible.
Man, I gotta see that.
You gotta see it.
There's somebody over here. Hang on. What do you need? What do you need? You guys, I had to come back to tell you this is the guy from the intro. If you guys continue, you'll be recording for eternity. You have to stop the podcast. You have to stop the episode. Cory Kerr's art can be found at CoryKerr.com. Scott Cirkland, who was on Monday's episode, can be found at CircWorks.com. Josh Kemble can be found at QuarterlyStories.com. And you should check out all of these things to see the crazy projects that are going on. And now we're going to go back to the future.